Hi there, welcome back to Boating Insights. My name is Neil Driscoll, and today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit around the process of either buying or changing boats and some of the things which come up quite often when I'm talking to the various people in our community who are enrolled in our courses, and just thought it might be a useful point for some things for you to think about if this is something that you might be doing in the mid to near time future. So, one of the first things I find is it's actually really useful to have a look at lots of different boats, and also, if possible, it can seem a bit overly organized for many people, but running a bit of a spreadsheet that just keeps track of things that you really liked and things that you were not so keen on can be super helpful. Bearing in mind also, it can be handy if you get boat specs and things like that to kind of download them and keep them in a file, because in a lot of situations, if they were only published on kind of a website that people were paying for, then most of the details of that listing might disappear once the boat's sold. So if you want to reference back to it later, you might not be able to unless you've actually saved the information. Aside from some of the obvious stuff though, like the number of sort of beds that you can get heads on, or how long you could stay, how many, what sort of setup you've got in terms of engines, or if it's a sailing boat, that kind of thing. What I more wanted to look at was the things that you may not realize that you care about. Now, one of the most obvious ways that you can try and expose yourself to learning more about a boat before you buy it is, if possible, if you get a chance to hire or go on a boat that's similar for a day, that can be amazingly helpful. It starts to depend, some of these things, on the value of the boat. If you're clearly, the more money that you're putting in, the easier it might become to justify expenses in terms of traveling to view boats or hiring them and so on. But definitely, I think there's a lot of benefit that can come from at least having a go on a similar boat that you're looking at for a day, and just seeing what you think, and if there's features that you really like or didn't like. I do find there's obviously lots of online communities for the different boats, and that can be really helpful. I sometimes find it can be a bit overwhelming as well. There's often people that are very, very passionate about whatever boat style they've chosen to buy, which can sometimes not always give you the most balanced information possible. But can be a nice, useful starting point to see sort of what sort of things people are talking about and that kind of stuff. Now, in terms of particularly looking down the track here of previously owned vessels, because I think with the new boat process, you get very well looked after by all the people that are sort of making that available for you. With a previously owned vessel, some of the things which can be really helpful for you to look at are, particularly what sort of maintenance has gone on the boat beforehand. Is there much of a paper trail going on there? It's often, not always, but often, if it seems too good to be true, it's possible that it might be because it is. I'm a huge fan of getting a professional survey done and getting the vessel inspected. It can be expensive and things can get missed, and I understand that, but it's a really good starting point to understand, and hopefully give you an opportunity to be able to see things that you're in for. You might be fine with them, but just to get that kind of professional opinion before you go down the track. Now, it's difficult until you've got quite far down the track there, because you're quite financially invested by the time you start paying to survey a boat and lift it out the water and all that kind of thing. So it's not something that you want to take that decision lightly, and it can be really frustrating if it throws something up that you then put the money in but don't buy it. But it's an awful lot less frustrating than buying the boat and then learning about insert issue here afterwards. And and often these things will work out for the best down the track. But I think there's a lot of value in getting a survey done if possible. In terms of the maintenance history, assuming you then go on and buy the boat, one of the things I find is it's worth taking the time to actually organise. If you get given sort of a batch of invoices or bills or records, if you can start to put them into a kind of online calendar to help you keep track of when things are due and when they're coming up, and Also, you'll often find that you just kind of get given everything in one go. And so I will try and sort of sort the invoices if I receive a load of invoicing history on a boat purchase based on the activity. I would kind of save it into a file based on if it was for the engine service or the lift out and so on. And sometimes I will just duplicate that or find a way of making sure that they can be linked or tagged, however you use your filing. Because, for example, sometimes a boatyard might organise the engine service as well, and you'll get asked about something that's happened 2-3 years down the track, and it's not always easy to know what you're looking at. So that's something I find. Take the time, go through all the paperwork that comes with the boat and try and understand that and make sure it's all relevant. The next thing in terms, it's one of our older original campaigns, is the whole use what you have, is make sure if it's on the boat, when you buy a boat, that you actually understand why everything's there. Take the time to go through all the lockers, make sure that you have actually got a handle on if there's spares on board, that they're relevant to the being useful for the current setup of the boat and they're not left over from when something was replaced previously. Same with the manuals for sure. And then also when you are going to look at the purchase, try and see if there's a way you can make it fairly easy for yourself. So if the boat's on a trailer, is there, what boat ramps are there that, for example, it might be that your nearest boat ramp always gets really busy and might be a bit stressful if you're new to launching recovering boats on a trailer, and maybe have a look and see if there's anything that's a little bit of a longer drive but might be quieter, more relaxed, or considered easier. Or even take a day off and give yourself a bit of time to just get comfortable midweek when it might be a bit quieter than making your first foray and having a go at reversing a trailer down a boat ramp on a Saturday afternoon while you're in a queue of 14 different cars and trailers. It can just depressurize things a little bit. Similar if you're new to owning sort of boats that are a bit bigger and live in the water. If possible, if you can have a couple of months on a swing mooring at least, rather than, obviously marina berths aren't feasible for everyone straight away, but the point being that if you are thinking of going into a marina, I'd still recommend having a couple of months on a swing mooring if you can, even if it's one that can make it really easy for you, like a service mooring with a tender service or options of dinghies you can borrow, that kind of thing. But I just find when you're first getting used to the boat, not having the added pressure of having to get in and out of a marina every time and just being able to kind of drop and go and pick up a simple mooring will normally just mean that you'll use the boat a bit more and hopefully, just to have more fun and get more comfortable with it. Clearly, the online skipper course is the ideal for this. It's actually what inspired this. Was just a couple of days ago, I was having a conversation with someone where they had decided to enroll in this and their radio license before they purchased a boat, so they could make sure when they bought the boat they had the license all set up for the radio so they could transfer MMSIs and knew what to do with EPIRBs and beacons and things, but also enrolled in the online skipper so that they knew what the equipment was that they were buying, what they cared about, what they wanted to negotiate on. And then the great thing is when you hit that first kind of couple of months, by having something like the online skipper course there, it will really help you put some structure into then getting out and going through things like we talked about in the boat handling episode recently, where you're identifying the pivot points, practicing different power handling, introducing different scenarios that you can do really gently and just build your confidence so that you are finding that by the time you get out there, you're feeling like you're not overwhelmed and you're ready and you're having a good time, and that everyone that's with you is also having a good time. Now, the next thing that I just wanted to flag for you here, so we've looked at things to think about before you buy, some of the training that you might do, some of the paperwork once you've taken over the boat. The next thing that I've touched on a moment ago was this whole MMSI EPIRB transfer thing. So if you are purchasing a boat where it's already got an MMSI number allocated to it, then you will need to request, once that's gone through, that the previous owner updates their people that they registered with. In Australia, that would be AMSA. Same for the beacon, and just provides your details. You can still take this over if you haven't got that done. It just makes it a lot easier. But basically, they're responsible for notifying the people that issued it to them or that they registered the EPIRBs with that they are no longer the owner of that vessel. If they have them, they're supposed to pass on the details of the new owner, and that's a good thing that you should just kind of make really easy for them, often just a simple new email thread, for example. And then you, from there, are able to organise getting things transferred into your name. So just to clarify, first of all, for the MMSI number, so that stays with the vessel, and therefore it was issued to someone who owned the boat once they had produced evidence of being qualified. And then that MMSI was issued to the vessel, and it would have been programmed into any fixed equipment. So, for example, radios and AIS is the main thing there. Then, when you take over the vessel, you then take over being responsible for that MMSI. So it stays programmed into the equipment, but it's now essentially in your name rather than the previous owner's. Same with the EPIRBs. The only thing there is a little bit simpler because you don't need a radio license to register an EPIRB. Anyone can register it, and if you're listening to this and you have an EPIRB you haven't yet registered, please do that today. It takes a couple of minutes. It's really important to make sure that your EPIRBs or beacons are registered. But same thing. So when you take over the boat, you would make sure that the EPIRBs are transferred into your name. It's something which I find a lot of people miss, or they assume happened as part of the boat transfer. But essentially, if you have bought a boat and you haven't done anything about this yet, it's safe to assume it's not done, whether that was a new boat or a previously owned boat. So if you've got beacons on board, or there's an MMSI, you need to, or DSC compatible equipment, you don't even know if there's an MMSI. This is something that you need to just make sure that you get organised. If you're not already qualified, then just jump on and enroll in the VHF radio course, and that'll get you sorted there so that you're eligible to operate the radio and also be issued with an MMSI. But that's an area that I find is quite often overlooked, and it doesn't need to be complicated. If you are at this point in the journey sort of looking at boats and thinking about owning a boat, be it in a syndicate or all on your own, then, and you don't yet have a radio license, just get that organised ASAP. I would recommend kind of roll it into that one of the packages that's got the online skipper with it as well. There's various nav things that you can do there, like Local Adventure or Complete Skipper. But just make sure that you get that all set up so that then when you take over and you've purchased the boat, you can hit the ground running. It just makes it all a lot easier. One of the things with radio licenses, there is a 15 working day processing time from the government, so it can take a bit longer than you're expecting to actually receive that license. So it's nice just to have that all done in advance of the purchase. The other side of things here is making your life easy. I touched on it with the record keeping, but I usually create an independent calendar for the boat that's an online calendar of whatever you use, Google, Outlook, etc. And just use that to log and record all the key dates. And then that way you can set yourself a reminder, but you'll find, for example, like the insurance will probably start the day, or hopefully start the day you own the boat. The registration is probably got a couple of months to run. Then the beacons, they will be in a different they'll have probably a period of time that you've got to just check and update that the information for the registration is correct, but also a battery expiry date. You might want to log either of them. So it's just making sure that you're on top of that. Things like if things are serviced, just record when they were most recently serviced. We've got logbooks set up to help you keep track of these key events as well. But particularly if you've got things like a boat license and insurances, and it can just be easy while you're going through the initial documentation that you receive of the boat to just kind of plug all the key dates into a calendar so that you then know and you can sort of set them going forward so you get reminders. Because for a sort of a larger 40-foot plus boat that you can stay on board, it's not out of the question that there'll be something that needs attention every 6 weeks or so. And it just, if you get organised early days, it just makes it really easy for yourselves. So the last thing here is just encouraging you to have fun. And the whole idea here of trying to make sure that you are able to hit the ground running, understanding some of the maintenance schedules, that you are organised so it doesn't sort of become an awful lot of work, that you've got the online skipper to help you with putting together a plan for learning to handle the vessel and getting comfortable with all of the different manoeuvres that you're going to want to be doing. And then, of course, I mentioned about keeping the boat on a swing mooring if possible, or going to an easy boat ramp during the week if you're keeping the boat out the water. But just making it easy for yourself so that you get out and you just keep everything really fun. Because ultimately, that's the aim of the game. So I hope this one was useful, and this has given you a few ideas to help get you moving and on the journey to either changing boats or purchasing a boat. So thanks for listening. Bye.